Welcome to sunny San Diego for Gravity this season. This series of videos will bring you principle-driven strategies and techniques for the sports of swimming, biking, and running, kind of a triathlon theme. So we hope that these videos bring you innovative ways to think about how you're training your clients, whether recreationally or competitively, for any of the following sports. This segment is for running, specifically taking a look at how the upper body propels the body forward after the lower body absorbs the force. A quick review is when the foot hits the ground, the calf, the hips, the quads all help to absorb that force. The job of the upper body is to help keep the pelvis stable with the strong abdominals, and that comes in via the shoulders. So the shoulder drivers, the pectoral muscles, the pecs and obliques all functioning at the same time with a lot of activities where the pelvis is moving in one direction, the shoulders are moving in the other. All ties in very nicely. So when we look at the principles again, we're looking at a closed chain activity, we're looking at gravity, we're looking at a ground reaction force, we're looking at the whole chain instead of just one particular segment, and how the upper extremities tie into the lower extremities through the trunk. This is pretty exciting stuff. I get real amped up about this because once you understand that you've absorbed the force, then there are going to be more abdominal, hip flexors, pecs, and everything that helps to propel you forward. So we'll take a look at some of the basics of that. We'll go into some movements, and we'll kind of get goofy at the end because we're going to try some new stuff on you. Let us know if you like it or hate it. That's what we're all about here, so talk to us. Our strategy for this particular segment is to, again, stimulate the upper body, the propulsion phase of running three-dimensionally, meaning that we're going to use the sagittal plane. Although it always looks sagittal plane, we're also going to get into the frontal plane, and we're going to get into the transverse plane as well. Running is a very transverse plane sport. Like I mentioned, pelvis is going one way, the shoulders are going the other. So you're getting that opposing force. So you have all these diagonal forces across the back, across the front, that help to propel the body forward for a nice, fun run. Okay, that brings us to our techniques. We're going to start off with a runner, and oh, here we go. Ma'am, would you mind trying out the GTS here?
No, not at all.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go into rotary motion. You can probably guess what we're going to do. We're going to do some static equilibrium rowing. So we've got everything all set up. I'm going to pop over on this side so I can see everything clearly. Now we're going to put Nicole into a high kneeling position because she's stable. That'll allow the pelvis to move in relation to the trunk and the shoulders. So we'll start off with just an easy static equilibrium row. So this is just getting the shoulders. We really want to emphasize the shoulder movement. So we're getting nice rotation, obliques, abdominals, pectoral muscles all turned on, the back's being lengthened, really good rotation. I know that Nicole runs a lot, so we'll see a lot of success here. So we got a couple things we can tweak here. One is we can go down to low kneeling, and that's going to create more torque. That moves the fulcrum up in the spine, so we're going to get more pure torque because her pelvis is now locked in a position, and that would be the same if we were in a seated position. Other things you can do that we don't have today, but you can also sit on a Bosu ball, an Airex pad, some of that foam padding, anything that just creates more instability for the pelvis to kind of float around in space. So that's exciting stuff. So if we look at this, we're going at a moderate pace. We may throw her into a full-on sprint where she goes as fast as she can. We may add load. I can add load just by pressing my hand on the glide board. That changes things up a little bit. And I can even add more load. You can add the weight bar with a few weights. And you can also change the line of pull. So if I change the pulley into the number 3 position, it's going to be a little bit different line of pull. And if I've conducted your trainings, you know that I'll tell you that life's not symmetrical. I'm going to throw the pulleys all over the place sometimes. Nicely done. All right, I'm going to move these to number 2, and we're going to move into our second technique, which is kind of an opposing force, which is going to be kind of a chest press version of what we just did. And I'm going to put Nicole in a kneeling position again on this one. It gets a little tricky when you're getting your client in a position. And what I'm going to do is just take the handles from her, and then we're going to go through that step by step because some of you may have not seen that. The easiest way to do this is to have the client kneel before the glide board's even in motion. So instead of holding the handles and anchoring in, and it's all you want are just the little toes over the glide board. Now as she sits back on her heels, I might do a little something like, all right, I'm going to move you up and down so you can kind of get your bearings. And as you press out, you know, the tendency is that people fall forward here if this is done inappropriately. So we will just kind of give her a little warm up, make sure that she's stable in that position, and then I'll bring her one handle at a time. And we're gonna have the cable on the inside of the hands. If you have the cable running from the outside, you're gonna get some rubbing with those cables. So almost the exact same thing, it's just the opposite. That way we kind of balance things out. We've got just kind of a general static equilibrium. And then we may go into a little bit of a high speed static equilibrium. See that? See the smile that occurs when you start to speed it up? And then what we'll do is add a little force. So maybe I'll come down here and just grab the glide board, pull it down a little bit, and make sure that she's getting good trunk rotation. And if I'm very confident in my client, which I'm very confident in Nicole right now, I might try a high kneeling version of this. Now you have to be very careful here, and I might even pop those pulleys up once or to one level and just have that same thing go. And now you'll notice that the hips are now able to swivel a little bit. So you reduce torque and you improve the overall function. Now that's kind of tough stuff, isn't it? Go ahead and have a seat on your heels. So we've got the speed, we've got the load, and now just a quick little change where we're gonna exaggerate the range of motion. So I'm gonna have her really come out to where she extends one arm out and really brings one back. That way we get nice lengthening across the pectoral muscles and it ties nicely into the hips. All of these motions are gonna create more stability in the trunk, are gonna help your runner run and help balance out the whole process of connecting the upper body to the lower body during the run. All right, you ready to get goofy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna try some new stuff, and what that means is we're going to probably look funny, look a little silly out here, but what we're gonna do is pre-position the hip. If we take a look at running again, if I'm landing on my right foot, my right shoulder is back and my left hip is back. This way we have a lengthening of the hip flexors, the iliopsoas, the quads, everything lengthened along with the rectus abdominis, the obliques, internal, external, but you see this diagonal line right here where the arm's driven back. So this is kind of my slingshot to be able to propel forward. Once my lower body does the job of absorbing the force, now I want to get that propulsion. So I want to propel. So I'm going to get everything from the hip to the shoulder to come forward. So we eccentrically lengthen, we concentrically explode. So we tried this once, I think it looked pretty good. What we're going to do first is we're going to put Nicole, and I'm going to do this safely, is have you get into position first before I give you the load, is we're going to pre-position the right hip in extension. So what I'm going to have you do is maybe lean forward a little bit more or drive the knee back, good. So now she's extended in her right hip. So what we want to do is add load to the right side. Okay, so I'm going to bring her this handle, kind of an unstable position. We'll get this on the inside again. And as she comes back, there you go ahead and try it out a few times. Make sure we've got it right. Okay, so here's how we know we've got it right. Pause right there. The shoulder's back, the pectorals are lengthened, the obliques are lengthened, and if you go, it's kind of goofy there, if you come around to where everything attaches, the hip flexors are lengthened as well. So we have that rotary diagonal type of contraction, that eccentric lengthening, and then concentric explode. Now granted, we're not getting a bottom-up contraction with the hip flexor, but it's still lengthened, so our focus, our emphasis is back here. So maybe I just have you move in this small range. That way we get lengthen, 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 and then shorten, shorten, shorten. It's fun. Yeah. Goof around a little bit with this stuff. Okay, I'll take this to make it safe, and now we'll get super goofy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get that leg to, we're gonna get the leg to lengthen and shorten. At the same time, we're gonna load the other arm with a medicine ball. You ready for this challenge? So what we've got here, is the same position. I can spot you here, but her foot's going to remain on the ground now. So when she presses forward, you might have to shimmy back just a little bit with the left foot. There you go. When she presses forward, the right hip has to go back because it's attached to the glide board. So you need to get enough range. So let's bring your foot back about a foot. There you go. Now let's see if that helps out. There we go. So that's what we're looking for. So now we've got the hip in more of a dynamic contraction instead of just pre-position and extension. And guess what I'm going to do with this guy? I'm going to put it in her hand, and we're going to exploit the transverse plane by drawing back, lengthening the pectoral muscles, getting a lot of momentum of mass driving through to help lengthen the obliques, lengthen the abdominals. And you can really look at this and get excited about it because boom, you just propel forward. She propels forward, and it's very functional because you have this slingshot effect. You have all that momentum of mass going back and forth at the same exact time that your lower hip or your right hip is being lengthened. That was fun.
Yeah.
Nice job. I'll take the ball from you. So those are just a few kind of tidbits, ideas. Goof around, have some fun, break it down. Look at function, or look at running in two different functions, the upper body, the lower body. You'll understand, you'll see that the lower body absorbs a lot of the force. The upper body, along with the hip flexors, help to propel you forward. Just like I'd mentioned before, there is not one type of running that's right for everybody. Sometimes you see people that run more in the frontal plane. You see those guys out there, and sometimes the feet are what are causing that. You see the big sagittal plane drivers. Sometimes you see people's feet turned in or turned out a little too much. So everybody's engineered a little different way, so everybody should probably run a way that works for them. Your primary suspects, if somebody's having pain or dysfunction or they're just not having any fun with their run, take a look at the feet, take a look at the dorsiflexors, take a look at the hips, and take a look at even the shoulder for its ability to help lengthen the lengthen the abdominals, lengthen the obliques. If all that comes together, where when you're taking a nice jog and you can feel your butt turning on, you can feel your abdominals turning on, and your big toe, as Gary Gray put it, the 3 B's, the big toe, the belly, and the butt. Once you get those guys sequencing in time, then you might be experiencing that runner's high where everything feels efficient, you're rolling smoothly, and you're having a good time on your run.